what happened first was the Brooklyn Nets stamped the Golden State Warriors 125-99. This was our first look at Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and they gave everybody a look at what this team might be all about this year. And this team looks very serious, and as dangerous as they look on paper. Last night was just a show that they're as legit as they look.
Yeah, 5 minutes into that game, after Durant had put up 10 points, it hit me. This guy hasn't played in an NBA game in 18 months, and he came back from an Achilles injury. No guy other than Dominique Wilkins has ever come back from that injury. That's arguably the most devastating injury in sports, and man, he has not missed a step.
Yeah, and with Durant, it's they're I don't want to say that there are doubters out there, because anybody who knows anything knows who Kevin Durant still is. But, after the injury, people aren't talking about him as a top 3 player in the association. I believe he is. And here he wants to show it, and he's going to show it. And then there's sort of this dynamic with Kyrie, who seems to be saying he's going to be a less me guy. He drops 26 and looks very good last night. Durant 22. You've got 2 superstars there. You've got a good supporting cast: Dinwiddie, LeVert, Joe Harris. So here's a Brooklyn team that I think faces an interesting question on the James Harden front, because the Rockets are sort of at a place where they've almost got to deal James Harden. I mean, they could be good with him, but it's becoming more and more fractured. The news of the day: Harden, there's video footage of him in a strip club. He claims it's not. I don't know that it ultimately matters. But he's fined $50,000. In other news, the Rockets aren't playing tonight. Their game against the Thunder's postponed. They don't have 8 players because of COVID protocol, so they can't play. He's obviously on the block, and the Rockets are shopping him. Is this a Nets team that really should be mortgaging some of the supporting cast, some of the depth that they have, and some of the first-round picks that this would require for James Harden to become a part of a big 3 in Brooklyn?
Even before the most recent Harden news, right? Like, you're getting pennies on the dollar for Harden.
Right.
He has not helped his situation for the Rockets' reward. So it is definitely not out of the question for the Nets to give up a package of LeVert and Dinwiddie and picks. But honestly, after watching last night's game, I don't think that move makes a ton of sense for Brooklyn. I feel like the offensive output is there, and they have a deep bench. And honestly, I feel like they're sacrificing too much to acquire a guy like James Harden that just helps a strength that they already have.
Yeah, and they're in a place where, especially after, winning by 25 points on night 1, where they could see what they have here. And I think they know what they have, but also I don't know why rush to pull the trigger on something like that. And, I just the idea of having a third piece like that. How does the ball get shared between Kyrie Irving, James Harden, and Kevin Durant? I honestly can't imagine it. I know that no one would complain about having 3 of the game's best, but there's got to be a timeshare problem there as well.
Yeah, it just, when you analyze it a little bit more, it just doesn't really make sense for either sides. Like, Houston's in a situation where they gave away all their picks to acquire Russell Westbrook. So they can't just tank, like
Right.
it just doesn't make it's really interesting to think about, to have 3 of the game's most prolific scorers on one team, but I really don't think it makes all that much sense for either sides.
Yeah, and I agree with you from the Rockets' perspective, and even from the Nets' perspective. This to me is a team that could be complete, could be the best team in the Eastern Conference. If that's the case, then it isn't necessary, and it isn't advisable So I don't know that I go there.